The Navy Construction Battalion, better known as the Seabees, is responsible for building much of the infrastructure at U.S. military locations around the world. Navy veteran Scott Friend gives us a glimpse into how they prepare forward operating bases for the likes of Army Rangers and SEAL teams, and as a sometimes harsh reality, doing so under fire. The Seabees aren't as well known by the general public, but for those directly impacted by their craftsmanship, they are respected and appreciated for their can-do motto and their ability to bring the comforts of home to the harsh environments of a war zone. This is the Carry the Load podcast. How do you describe Seabees to the civilian?
So during the war, World War II, we had contractors going over, and they were the ones doing all the building, but these guys can't carry weapons. So these are civilians getting killed in the war effort. And so Admiral Ben Morrell decided, hey, and a lot of other people, but he's the father of the Seabees. He realized there was a need for people in the skilled trades to be over there, but they needed to carry a weapon, which is against the Geneva Convention if you're a civilian. So you're treated as a guerrilla. So the Seabees were stood up. The cool thing is when they stood them up, these are folks from the trades that are not young men. I mean, these are journeyman level, master level carpenters, electricians, plumbers. So it was a ragtag bunch from what I can tell from the history books on the Seabees. But it was really neat. I mean, you had these skilled builders that wanted to give their time to the war effort. And the only skill they were really missing is, well, here's how you protect yourself in the time of war. Sometimes you have Seabees going out and building a COP or a FOB, and this is, enemy territory. And typically you would have some sort of protection force, I guess, some sort of security force, whether that's Rangers, SEALs, infantry, something. Because I tell people that if we were shooting back, we're in trouble. I mean, we're not infantrymen, we're not trained to that level. You're trained enough to defend yourself, but we're not an offensive force. Right.
If you're in a firefight, something's gone wrong, and you're being attacked.
Exactly.
Is that a fair way to put it?
Yeah, exactly. So, like I said, when I went over, most of these FOBs, everything was pretty much established, but we were still taking fire. I mean, because you got to travel back and forth between the camps, and we're taking mortar rounds, getting shot at, so that, I mean, it still happens. So you're definitely in harm's way, and man, it's tough. I mean, it's a unique experience. It's nothing like I ever thought it would be.
And what was your specialty inside of it?
I was a builder, so I was a carpenter.
Okay. So, I mean, I'm thinking in terms of what you do, now as a contractor in the construction world. Is there anything that you guys couldn't do versus the world that you live in now?
Probably couldn't get away with what we could in the Seabees. There's no OSHA overseas. So, it's the mission. You got to get it built. You got to get it done. There's no, schedule's king, because when you have a SEAL team flying in X amount of days, there's no, we worked this many hours. I mean, it's not like the regular world where we have plans and specs that we're building to. It doesn't have to look pretty. And so we just have to get it done. I mean,
but your pride still wants to make sure that it looks good.
Yeah, absolutely. So at that specific time, I think we had about 3 weeks that we were supposed to be there. This ended up turning into almost 2 months. This is in Afghanistan. The FOB that we were sent to, we had Dev Group flying in, and we had to build their tent camp, basically.
Okay, so you were building this for SEAL Team 6. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that begs the question, did this have anything to do with bin Laden?
I'm sure it did. We weren't privy to a lot of the information. The area that I was at, we had to sign all these forms. We couldn't have cameras. We couldn't disclose a lot of information. And we were attached to JSOC, Joint Special Operations. So we had, Dev Group, SEAL Team 6, 1st Ranger Battalion, MARSOC. I think they had just started back up again.
So help people understand, when you push out and you establish a forward operating base, you're talking about SEAL Team 6 as an example. They come in and you've already been there. You've already built them a little bit of a a little bit of a place to live and operate from. But when you guys get there, there's nothing.
As far as I know, they were going out to places where people were still, showering out of water bottles, and like there was nothing set up. So that was the whole point. Now these guys are there with us. So if we have to go establish that, because again, they're our protection. So we're building for these guys. So of course they want to take care of us. We're the ones helping them out.
Sure.
Just like, our tradesmen in the field.
Well, they can't operate as effectively.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because they don't have, some of these, the smallest things to an infantryman, to a special forces guy, just the smallest thing, to not have to pour a bottle of water over your head to shower and just pull a string and let it be on for 3 seconds rather than constantly dumping.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
Creature comforts go a long way, for sure.
You start off with brown sand and walk people through the phases of where it eventually gets to. Because to me, that's fascinating. You watch a movie and you see that stuff and you take it for granted that it was just like already there or something. How long does it take to get from that brown sand to where it ultimately ends up?
So the duration, that's going to vary, just depending on logistics as far as getting supplies in. But yeah, first thing, setting up perimeter security, and that's the HESCO barriers, some sort of protection around that soon-to-be facility. That could be Jersey barriers, something solid that if, God forbid, like a V-bid or something comes in, it's not going to drive straight into the center where you're at, I guess. If that makes
V-bid
sense.
being a vehicle IED.
Right. So you're setting up some sort of perimeter. So that's the footprint of the soon-to-be camp. And you're planning your logistics just like you would building a SIP. So we're planning a facility, and it's really fun. But you've also got to think in mind: do you have, your cones of fire? Like, do you have your left and right lateral limit? This is not the stuff I'm thinking about on a day job, right? Building a building. So now I'm sure this is all above my head how this happens, but you're using people like civil affairs to make those connections, and we're getting our product. We had a ton of third country nationals that came to work with us too. So that's the whole hearts and minds piece, right? So we're employing their people. They're helping us out build this base. So now you've got all your logistics taken care of, and at that point it's planning out where this stuff goes, get material, and just go to town.
How much does the plan change, and how much of it is a plan on paper? But then when you get there, you go, ooh, the ground doesn't look like this, and so how much changes?
That's a good question. Going back to that one instance where we couldn't get material because guys were getting blown up, but we always made a way. The Seabee motto is can do. We're going to make a way. And that has stuck with me, to this day. And there's a lot of people, and it's not just specifically military, obviously. There's people with that mindset everywhere.
But the level of friction is so totally different over in the sandbox where you literally have bad guys out there. Talk about that. How does that mess with your mind when you've got your job is not to kill people out there. Your job is to keep others alive so they can go kill them. But you have to avoid being killed yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the trust factor in whoever's kind of guarding us, our guardian angel, if you will. So the guy I wear my band for, he was the ranger that protected us where we were building on that same fob at the guys, all the materials getting blown up. So it's the trust factor in, hey, if something does go down, I have to have a comfort level in their training. It's not easy. I can remember laying awake at night, and there were days sometimes I would go without sleep just because I was so stressed out about, man, if a bomb came in at the right spot, I'm done. There's no running to the bunker. You're done. One of the FOBs we went to, they call it Rocket City because, this thing was getting hit all the time. And I'm like, man, if this stuff comes in, we're done. But you learn, and I think that's helped me now, is you have to expect the unexpected. Something's going to happen that's out of my control.
The stakes are very different, livelihood versus life. But I'm sure you had some close calls like that in Afghanistan. Yeah,
I didn't have constantly bullets whizzing past my head or anything because we're not. It's really weird, the term front lines, right? the war in Afghanistan was completely different. Everything was the front line. So it's very difficult in that, I'm not right there. I'm not with the Ranger Battalion going into people's houses and taking care of business. But yeah, you receive incoming and things like that. There was one occasion that I can remember, and I still reach out to my buddy Randall every year on Thanksgiving, because this was Thanksgiving 2009. And we were on a blackout fob. And so for those people that don't know, blackout, there's no light. Because with nods on, I mean, you can see a cigarette from a ways away. People can scope
nods being night vision.
Yeah, so you can see people from quite a ways away. But some idiot decided, and I don't know who, we saw a door open and close, and we're going, oh, great, here we go. Because there are people watching. I mean, there's always some jerk somewhere, enemy, with binoculars, night vision, something. Sure enough, within minutes, we start taking incoming, the alarm goes off, and the only thing we had to run to at the time is we're building this is a fresh piece of a larger fob. So it's this big open gravel area with nothing, no cover, not even concealment, nothing. So of course we didn't have anywhere to go to when bombs were started falling. So they had these pods that they built that were, I don't know, maybe a quarter the size of this room. They weren't very big, but they were for prisoners. So when they wrap these guys up, they put them in that prison for a short period of time before they are able to take them back and processed. Bombs are coming in, and we got to that point where we're like, here we are, like we don't know where it's coming from. You can hear it, and the alarms are going off, but if they start, incoming towards our position, it's probably going through the roof, and we're probably done. So we're just trying to have a good time with each other, talking crap. We're like, oh, happy Thanksgiving, guys. And so to this day, I still text them, hey man, just thinking about you. And it's a bonding experience, right?
It's interesting. You were talking about the challenges of, you're building something. Here comes some incoming fire. And I had this mental picture of, this is really way out there, but Last of the Mohicans. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, that is exactly, man, that's such a good analogy, because I don't know if I share with you when you came out to the job site, but I always go back to this one fob we built on, probably because I didn't do much on the other one. So the longest work day I ever did in my life was a 27-hour, like, straight labor, just go, nonstop. And toward the end of it, we started taking rounds, and I can remember saying to the guy who outranks me, so even though I was the crew leader at the time, they brought in I believe he was an E6 at the time, I was an E4. And I said, man, we got to go to the bunker, because this stuff was getting close. And we did have a bunker at that point. And he's saying, I don't give a crap. I mean, in more harsh terms.
More eloquent.
Yeah, sure. He said, keep going. And I can remember hanging off of this rooftop. So we've got this peak at the roof that's corrugated sheet metal, and I'm screwing in the sheet metal. And I'm hanging onto the peak of this roof, and I've got concertina wire below me on top of barricades. And I'm like, man, if I let go of this thing, it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt. And there was just this.
You probably weren't tethered.
No, God, no. No, I mean, you're just crawling all over the place trying to get things done. So, but yeah, it's very similar to that, because we stopped. Okay, where's it coming from? Is it going to hit us? Maybe, but just keep going. And we kept pressing on. That's helped me today, because I don't care how late I'm at work. I'm like, thank God. It's not that day. I'm not doing straight labor for 27 hours. So.
Do you think those guys from the SEAL teams and from the Green Beret and the MARSOC, or even straight leg guys like me, do you think they have an appreciation for what you guys did?
Yeah, I think they do. And the reason I say that confidently is because I'll tell you, every time I've met a SEAL since I've been out, it's always neat to interact with these guys, or a lot of Marines too, or anybody that has served with a Seabee unit somehow with support. every single time their eyes light up and they get all excited. I can remember I was on a golf tournament a year or two ago, and there was a SEAL out there with his booth set up. He owned a company and he was giving away like bottles. It was a liquor company of some sort. And so we're chatting up. I said, yeah, I was a Seabee. And he, oh man, you guys work your tail off, man, and just really appreciative. And I'm thinking, you guys are the guys we look up to. Like it's really neat to have this mutual respect. And you'll see, I mean, Admiral McCraven wrote a book, and I think it was his Sea Stories book, really good book. And in that, he mentions just how much he loves the Seabees. And we built, it wasn't my team, it was prior to us, but I was in this facility. We built the Joint Operations Center, the JOC at the camp, and he remembers that. And that's just really cool to hear that from somebody of his stature, right? Like somebody who's very well known in the special operations community, in Texas because of his position at the university. And yeah, I definitely think they have an appreciation for it.
So were y'all able to bring everybody back home okay?
Yeah. Our battalion was, the guys that we were attached to were not, and that was tough. That was a really unique point because most of us at that battalion had not been in, or at least in our company, had not been in combat. I want to say a bomb came into the chow hall maybe. I think it was the chow hall, and a guy was within like 2 weeks of going home. And you hear all these horror stories and we're going, great. This is horrific. We're terrified. And then when we got to the first FOB we went to build, it was either the day prior or 2 days prior, 2 Rangers got killed. One of them, it was his first mission, and he got shot coming off the ramp of the bird. And young guy, Hario and Dawson. I remember their names. And I believe Private Hario, it was his first mission, I think. Pretty sure.
He didn't even get a step.
No, so at least that's what I was told. And there's a documentary about it I found later, talking about that unit. And I just thought that was really neat. And I happened to reconnect with one of the guys and chatted with him about it. He didn't know about the documentary. I said, yeah, man, it's all on there.
So you mentioned the prisoner box.
Oh yeah.
Did you ever come across any of those prisoners?
I did.
Did you see them brought back in?
I did. Yeah.
What was that like?
It was an interesting scenario, I guess. We had a camp that had a prison on it. The only way I could describe it was like a horror movie. And what I mean by that is not like body parts or anything crazy. It was just like surreal that this is the face of evil, some of these guys. Just the horrific things that they did to people. And we did have one guy that we saw him kind of intermittently, and he got blown up on the way. So his jaw is practically hanging off, and he's coming to the gate holding this thing on. I got to work. I'm like, oh my gosh.
So this is one of the
drive.
Afghani locals.
Mm-hmm. I mean, talk about this guy's drive. Was it the money? Was it the security? I don't know, but I've never seen somebody come to a job site with their jaw hanging off saying, I got to work. It's just wild. But yeah, so we never got close to like with the Terps or anything, any of the guys that went out with the other guys in the mission, but we had our own little subset of guys. And we got close to them. We learned a little bit about their families and things like that. Or one guy would bring his uncle with him. He didn't do anything, but an older guy that would sit with him. So yeah, it was really neat. And that started me on a faith journey when I was over there too. I always respected just how much they honored their faith. It was really neat.
You went on a faith journey, and then it ultimately led you into...
Not that faith. So yeah, I did. Because I thought that was the route I was going to take. And I'm just, I was 23, 24, maybe 23, probably at the time. So, I'm a young man thinking, why are we here, right? The big questions and all this stuff. And I had this immense respect for their reverence for God, and how they would intentionally stop so many times out throughout the day to pray. And we're getting bombs coming in, and you got all this stuff going on in your mind thinking, what's it all mean? And so all these big questions, right? And I did this 2 deployments. I would have this, oh my gosh moment and think, I'm going to go on the straight and narrow when I come back. And I would just party. And I got out of the service, and without going into too many details, I hit a rock bottom. And my boss at the time really helped me out. I found my way to a church, and my life changed a lot. Some of that being my part I did in the reserves. But yeah, I thought I was going to come back into the service full time and be a chaplain. I only did 2 years in the reserves, and I ended up with a PSYOP unit. Thought, man, I'm going to go full time. But my wife had such a hard time with me being out of town only for a couple weeks on field training. We both agreed, hey, this is probably not the best thing for our family.
Right. Well, as you know, Carry the Load is about restoring the true meaning of Memorial Day and making sure that we honor those who did not get to come home. They never got to take off the uniform, and we want to honor them by making sure that we keep their memories alive. So who are you carrying?
So there are 4 that I'm carrying. So like I shared with you, I was able to do the walk a couple years ago. Got injured, couldn't do it this last year, but so I had my rucksack on, and I had David Davison, who was a mentor of mine, my first command, died in a helicopter crash. Chief Raymond Border, who he augmented to the Army to support them, individual augmentee, got blown up in an IED blast. Joey Dimmick, the guy that I represent every day, he was our Overwatch, and his parents gave me this on the 10th anniversary of his death, and I said I will never take it off. Justin Hunt was a good friend of mine, and Justin took his life, and that was the hardest one for me, for sure, especially since he was here in Texas. And if I'd have known he was suffering, I'm sure there's a lot of us that would have flown out to talk to him. But
what did you take away from that?
If I think about the guys that I served with, we're so fortunate now that we're just a phone call away. And there are a lot of us, after Justin passed, the bonds between some of those guys got even closer, just because there's a few guys that I can call and trust that if I'm really in a time of need, that these guys are going to come to my side. So our bond was already tight. Now it's irreplaceable. There's all this trauma. People deal with it differently. You've got the guys at the tip of the spear, and you have your everyday Joe Schmo that has some sort of trauma in their past, and our brains react to it very similarly. And so what a lot of us learned out of that was, if I need to talk to somebody, I need to talk to somebody. If I've got problems, I need to get them fixed. Let's figure this out.
Scott, thanks, man.
Thank you, brother.
It's been enjoyable. I hope it hadn't been difficult being on the other side of it.
Yeah, this is unique. Thank you for having me as a guest.
Absolutely,
I really appreciate it.
Thanks. If this resonated with you in the least, please subscribe and like, and please, please, please share it with at least one person. These are the stories that make us uniquely American. These are the stories that preserve the integrity of our nation.